The Gospel of John, chapter 19, verses 25 to 30. Standing near the cross was Mary, the mother of Creator Sets Free Jesus, who had come to see him, along with her sister. 2 other women also came with her, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary, from Creator's High Lodge known as Magdala. John, the much-loved follower of Creator Sets Free, was also there with them. And so, when Creator Sets Free, Jesus looked down and saw them. He said to his own mother, "Honored woman, look to your son." And then he said to his follower, "Look to your mother." And from that time, the follower took Mary into his family and cared for her. So Creator Sets Free Jesus, knowing he had done all the ancient, sacred teachings had foretold, said, "I thirst." And there was a vessel of sour and bitter wine standing nearby. One of the soldiers dipped a cloth in it to soak up some wine. He wrapped the cloth around the tip of a hyssop branch and held it up to the mouth of Creator Sets Free Jesus. He then tasted the bitter wine, turned his head to the sky, and cried out in a loud voice, "It is done." He then lowered his head to his chest, and with his last breath, gave up his spirit. Here's what I don't like about Mother's Day, and that's what I want to begin with. Like most things that have been commercialized in our society, it is very hard to sell as much stuff when you have nuanced, or I would argue, realistic definitions of what it is that you're talking about. And so we end up with sweet cards, we end up with flowers, we end up with obligation and duty, we end up sort of ignoring what's really amazing and really important, and it kind of gets turned into some sort of a prefabricated whatever. Hence, restaurants are packed on Mother's Day. Hence the idea that we can sort of focus our care and attention or be the recipients of special care and attention on one specific day when we really should be spreading this out throughout the year. But I'm very touched by this passage in John. It's not one of the ones that gets a lot of attention when we think about Jesus' crucifixion, but I think it needs to. Because in the, as Marty so perfectly read, in the last moments, or very much near the end of Jesus' life. So keep in mind how badly bruised, broken, bled out, and bleeding and in pain he is. Could be delirious, but is not. And he sees his mom there, and we got to come back to Mary in a second. But one of his last words is to look to John, his disciple, the only disciple that's there, and say, "Hey, we have the formal words, but this is the reality of it." He's like, "Take care of my mom." And he says, "Hey, Mom, that'll be your son." Now, we know that culture. We know that women on their own, it was a much harder go for women even nowadays. And so to her to have a family network was beautiful, thoughtful, but also incredibly necessary for her survival. She is not losing a son. She is not being cast out. She's finding a family. And that is beautiful, and it makes Jesus a good son. Before too many of us guys feel bad about that, we have to remember that in Mark, earlier on, when Mary and some of Jesus' siblings showed up to sort of calm him down, be like, "All right, this Messiah thing is weird," people said, "Hey, your mom is here." And he said, "Who's my mom?" "People who do the will of God are my mom." So Mary's had a complicated relationship with Jesus, as any mother can attest to. And I think that's the more important part for us to remember today, is the simple fact that Mary is the only human being. And as Protestants, we need to spend a little bit more time celebrating Mary. We've largely sort of ignored her because that's considered somewhat of a Catholic thing, but that's poor Mary. She doesn't deserve that. Mary is the only human being in the history of this crazy, crazy world to have known Jesus from conception to ascension. She carried the Lord within her. She was there for all his childhood development. She fed him at her breast. She changed his diapers. She taught him words, how to walk. She taught him how to see the world. She watched him grow. He was there when she lost her husband, and he became the man of the house for however many years that was, we don't know. And then she watched him go into a very, very dangerous public ministry, challenging the religious establishment of the day, challenging the Roman Empire and various governments, challenging hypocrisy, corruption, misuse of religious power, saying that he was speaking more on behalf of Yahweh than anybody before, saying things like, we've all been taught this, but I tell you that, moms in this room and online, were your child to stand up into a public setting and challenge the most powerful structures of the day verbally and repeatedly, how much sleep are you getting? There's just wordless nods. Terrifying for Mary. Terrifying. And most importantly, her worst nightmares came true. She sat there and watched. Oh, you got me crying earlier. It's your fault. She watched them torture her baby boy to death. And one of the last things her baby boy said was, Mom. So, I don't like cards on Mother's Day. I don't like false sentimentality, because I think it's so important, especially in a Christian church, to acknowledge how brutal being a mom is. Your heart walks around outside your body for all these years, and sometimes your heart doesn't even come back to you and talk to you. And other people are cruel to your kids. Nobody needs that. So this is a very powerful and sadly often overlooked, because one of the criticisms we hear is the title of today's reflection, rose-colored glasses, this critique, let's say critique, that perhaps we view the world in ways that are a little bit too shiny, a little bit too optimistic, that don't necessarily reflect the reality that other people in our life believe is a little bit more real. But my goodness, if ever there are humans that deserve to look at other people through rose-colored glasses, it is moms. You look at your children and look past the flaws as much as possible and love them in ways that no other human being is even capable of. And that, in our society, is still kind of considered a little bit, at best, naive. Why would you look at something? You're looking at this through rose-colored glasses. You're just seeing what you want to see. And the dangers of that are fine. I understand it. We all do. But what a small, shallow, human moment to kind of get the hint of a glimpse of a foundational biblical Christian teaching. That we are viewed by a parent who lost a child at the hands of other children, and when that parent looks at us and all the things we do and have had it wrong, looks at us and sees, I mean this literally, his child. Child. That's the core of why we call it the gospel, why we call it good news, is that all of us are the recipient of divine rose-colored glasses. Because rose-colored glasses are not naive. Rose-colored glasses is a term we give when somebody is looking through the eyes of love. And those who are not looking at the same person with the same level of love have the audacity to critique that. Look at these young men at the front here. Gentlemen, look around at this room full of elders. Two of you have been known by people in this room since infancy. You and wherever Austin is have been known for a few years. These young people, like all of us, are just, yeah, come in, there he is, there, you heard your name. These young people are doing what we have all done. They're trying to navigate a very scary world. Very unlike the world many of you grew up in, and very unlike the world I grew up in. We may have to cast ourselves back a few years, but think about when life was there as opposed to when life is here. Both of these have fear. We may look back and be like, ooh, too many things have happened. How much more of this do I have? But also think about when all of that is out there. It's all unknown. The world is changing like this. And these young people are trying to figure out who they are, where they fit, what kind of people they're going to be. So, faith family, I ask you, what is wrong at looking at these warriors going out into the world through rose-colored glasses? We need cheerleaders. We need support. We need to know at least a few people out there see me and love me just as I am, because whether you're 16 or 86, you have that same human desire, which is the point behind Mary sitting at the foot of her baby boy's death so that we could enjoy, understand, and benefit from a God who loves us and frequently repeats, I am your parent. And as parents, as broken as you are, you at least get an idea of the concept of how much a parent loves a child. So now apply that with infinite more strength to what it is that I feel towards you, and you will understand why this is good news. And what do we do with it? We turn it into a bunch of rules. We build buildings, we conquer people. Oh my gosh. Thank goodness we have a loving parent, because we are not loving siblings. And so as we walk on the higher path of Creator Sets Free, Jesus the Chosen One, let us try as much as possible, and spoiler, it won't be that possible, to understand that we are the recipients of a rose-colored divine perspective, and there's nothing wrong, and I would argue a lot right, with looking at this world through rose-colored glasses. Amen, amen, amen.